Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and very few times do things come full circle. Now, it wasn't too long ago that I was yapping about a video game that Ubisoft took down called The Crew. Now, for anybody that doesn't know The Crew, it's one of these big mega open world games. They tried to make the entire United States into a map, and I would say for the time they did a pretty damn good job. You could road trip with your homies. The only problem, the one tiny issue with this, was it was always connected to the internet. You needed the internet to play a video game. Now, at the time, I'm sure a lot of gamers were like, what's the big deal? You don't have an internet connection? Loser? That wasn't until the company announced that they were going to terminate the video game, okay? So out of nowhere, a company like Ubisoft comes by, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna take away your game, okay? So not only did they shut down the servers, but if you bought a copy of the game, which I did, you got it taken away. It just became invalid. They removed the ability for you to download the game. And of course, that started the Stop Killing Games movement, which obviously became its own massive mega movement, especially recently. And it started opening up people's eyes. We should be allowed to own our games, okay? And for a lot of video games that have online-only connectivity, I'm looking at you, Need for Speed 2015, because I actually really enjoy that game. Losing access to a video game, especially when that video game does barely fucking all with the online to begin with, is just annoying. So why am I yapping about this today? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it actually appears to have had made a comeback. Now, Whammy4, a YouTuber, has a group called The Crew Unlimited. Now, normally I wouldn't make a video about this right now because I'm a little bit worried about this project getting taken down, but on the September 15th, they are about to release the actual server project that brings this game back. So you can actually see for them like basically showcasing the footage over here. So yeah, for months these guys have been putting together a server emulator that has been bringing features back for The Crew just to make the game functional again for the people that now don't have access to this game or wanted to see what this was like back when it released, right? A lot of parts about this that are important to me is gaming history and game preservation. Imagine if, all of a sudden Super Nintendo games, PlayStation 1 games, a lot of the games that, are the bedrock for the gaming remakes that we see today were removed from player existence. I'm sure some companies would love that. The ability to resell you something for 40 bucks a pop, 60 bucks a pop, yada, yada, yada. But gaming history is important. Much like art, much like movies, much like music, you should have the ability to preserve this stuff so you can see incrementally from decade to decade the evolution of our medium, right? Video gaming is so unique, it's new, but it's also something that is rife with the ability for abuse, right? Companies can design games in ways where they can take stuff away literally decades down the road. It's insanity. So of course, ladies and gentlemen, obviously The Crew Unlimited is releasing on the 15th. And unfortunately, one thing that does scare me is it's already started to make like waves. So people are kind of talking about it, and I'm praying that Ubisoft doesn't go out of their way to shut this down. Again, I don't really believe or have good faith in Ubisoft at all. I think that at any moment, if they think that this could ruin anything for them, if they could take away a dime from their coffers, they might just choose to go at this legally. But of course, they say this is a community-made project, and the goal is to restore a game to a playable state with the use of custom server emulator software. The project and its staff do not host or redistribute any of the game files on official TCU project sources. Now, one of the big asterisks about piracy here, and this might be a philosophical debate, is if you look at, of course, obviously the big problem with this game is this was never released, from my understanding, physically on the actual PC, so we don't have a copy of the files that we can just find on, a legal way, right? Like buying a third-party disc. So it's only been a online-only product. Now the thing is, because Ubisoft disabled the game from being downloaded, basically you are kind of reliant on someone sharing the files that are on their system, which would technically be piracy, which, again, because the way that this works is you have to download a private server file, run the private server program, and then, of course, the game should link to the private server. So this brings up the philosophical debate. If, you can't buy something, is it really actually even stealing, right? And that's the big caveat here, and that's one of the big worries that I have.
Obviously, I think that the team behind it feels pretty confident. Ubisoft isn't going to shut them down. Gaming publications feel pretty confident. I am a little bit hesitant, which is one of the reasons I'm also still hesitant making this video. But I think it's a pretty impressive thing to see a company or a community of gamers do just to keep a game alive, when realistically it isn't even their responsibility. It should be the responsibility of the multi-billion-dollar publisher selling the fucking game to begin with.
That even Ubisoft has completely abandoned. And what's funny to me is, like, months ago, when Ubisoft was put under direct heat, they started talking about offline mode updates for Crew 2 and Motorsport. Not the original one that they were fucking killing off and taking away from the gamers at all. No, they decided, yeah, we're just going to add a feature. Dog, I think it's a bad sign for gaming when video games have to be given offline modes as feature updates. What used to be part of the fucking game, especially a racing game, okay? And I want to remind you why it's important for a racing game. Racing games usually are the type of games that go out of sale within years, just because licensing issues are actually the worst for them. So having an element of a game that is available for play long after is pretty fucking important, okay? Now, I think it's just insane to me to see, like, the community who loves this game so much has put an absolute labor of love into this project and have done what a multi-billion-dollar quadruple A studio cannot fucking do. You know, like, how is this even real anymore? How is this the world we live in, okay? God damn. Now, will I be playing this upon release? I'll actually be playing around with it. I probably might just make like a guide for it. I'm assuming these guys will probably have a way to easily get people even under Linux because of the Steam Deck to function with this. But the idea is on the 15th, they're going to be bringing back a game that Ubisoft abandoned and continue to not acknowledge. And actually might be one of the reasons, hopefully down the road through the Stop Killing Games initiative, will make it so that at least when people play video games like this down the road, it will not just be taken away. And again, it's important because these games have a lot of memories for individuals. I want to kind of take this time to sort of look at other projects too, just to show you what it really means for game preservation, right? Now, back in the day, all right, there used to be a game franchise known as Mass Effect, right? I'm sure some of you guys have played Mass Effect. Mass Effect 3, in particular, had a multiplayer mode. Now, the multiplayer mode actually bled pretty heavily into the single player. Like, in order to get the best ending, back in the day, you had to play some multiplayer modes to increase something known as the galactic readiness percentage. So the higher your percentage would be, basically the more you play multiplayer, the more effective your single player contributions would be towards the end of the game. Now, some could say it was shitty, and this is a feature that is still kind of bled a little bit into the remaster of the game. So Mass Effect Legendary came out like 4 years ago, and they removed the multiplayer entirely from Mass Effect 3. And I actually really liked the multiplayer from back in the day. I thought it was fucking fun to play with my homies. Well, thankfully, due to projects like Pocket Relay, for instance, you can follow these very easy guides. And again, when I mentioned Linux earlier, it was because some guides now provide both options because they know some people will have this set up on like a Steam Deck so they can play this shit on the go totally offline. So if you at any point missed a piece of gaming history, like the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, some might think it's meaningless, and that's fine. You at least have the option to follow this guide, and it's only 6 steps, and then you can just start playing this game as it originally released. You can experience all of the content, even if EA doesn't want to put in the fucking effort to bring this stuff back. It's actually a problem that I see with a lot of things like remakes, where like remakes will come out, but usually the multiplayer portion is just always split out. So for instance, when Red Dead Redemption came out, it was a full-priced remaster of like this fucking, 15-plus-year-old game. And all of a sudden, you know, Rockstar, they cut the multiplayer out, which I remember playing the multiplayer for Red Dead a lot. Now, the only way to really experience that is, I believe if you whip out the original Xbox version underneath Xbox Live or Xbox like Series emulation, or you play it with RPCN underneath the PlayStation emulator on PC. So you see what I'm trying to say over here? We have to go through extra steps just to preserve shit. Even for games I really love like Hitman, World of Assassin, one of the things that's important is the Peacock project, which allows me, and I use this to set up the game for my Steam Deck. So whenever I'm flying out somewhere or traveling, I don't need the internet connection to play Hitman and progress in it. I can experience the whole fucking game without requirements for online services. And it's important here because Hitman is a game that you mostly play by yourself. There's really no multiplayer component. The only component that's added is basically, in my opinion, DRM. It's designed to keep you connected online and basically guide the bulk of your single player progression while being forced to connect to a server all the time. So let's say that server goes offline, your information might be gone offline too. You might lose all progression. The game is simply just a demo, in my opinion, unless you somehow have a server emulator or that constant online connection. But even if we're not talking about the AAA experiences, one of the reasons why I'm super passionate about this is one of the games that I used to play was World of Warcraft. And when I started playing World of Warcraft, it wasn't when I had an income that I could pay the monthly fees. I had to use private servers like this. I had to go into my World of Warcraft game directory, go to the realm list, change the realm information, and play on private servers simply because it was the only way that I could play at the time. And that's what bled me into playing real World of Warcraft and then eventually completely fucking falling off that. But then even other MMO games like Drift City, which I made a video about. I even have it still as my YouTube like trailer, you know, the first video people see when they go to my channel. And it's a video that I enjoy because it really is a fun, old school, automodelista, cel-shaded racing MMO. I love racing games, okay? All right? I have a real love for that shit. But again, there was a time when it was gone, but thankfully you can now download the original private server files and the client, and you can play with yourself, or you can host it for your friends. So me and my buddies want to play some MMO, old school IJJI action, we can. Thank God, due to the private emulator community and the private server community that exists. But again, to go back to all of this, what I find so hilarious in this entire process is, for some reason, Ubisoft as a company cannot put the extra goddamn effort to make it so that people who are playing their games, people who spend $60 buying a game, they yoink that purchase away from them. What we've seen the community here do is something Ubisoft could have done at any given moment. And it appears to be that they could have done it because if people are able to reverse, engineer the stuff, okay, then I don't understand how the company that has made the game can't put in like the extra effort to at least silently tie off this game and at least let people experience this stuff down the road. And speaking of Ubisoft as well, one of the things that's also really important too is games like Driver San Francisco, which are absolute fan favorites, were taken away without any ability to download them, fully single player games, completely taken away from purchase. Well, thankfully, if we're ending this video off on, you can now download this game on abandonware and at least play a piece of history for yourself, with or without these publishers allowing you access. I don't think game companies or anyone should just be taking away your purchases or taking away anything. And that's why, at least on my channel, when it comes to emulation and game preservation, I like to signal boost and talk about things and projects that protect you. Now, again, I hope that Ubisoft, even with all of this, news coverage on this, will not shut down this project. Please do not shut it down. Because Ubisoft's not putting in the efforts, and these guys are clearly not making a bag off of this. Let the community preserve your games. But again, if Ubisoft does take it down, I mean, goddamn. Every company is just vying to become the next scummy fucking publisher at this point. So it wouldn't shock me. But ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it or dislike it. I am out.